The Sparks Museum podcast is made possible by a grant from the Nevada Humanities and the National Endowment for the Humanities. The podcast is just one of many new features of the Sparks Heritage Museum. To learn more, check out our social media channels or our website at www.sparksmuseum.org. Hello, and welcome to the Sparks Museum podcast. I'm your host and the media manager for the Sparks Heritage Museum, Jessica Johnson. Today on the podcast, I sit down with Councilman Donald Abbott. As a Sparks High School alumnus and proud railroader himself, Donald speaks to the Alumni Association, his role on the committee of the Sparks High School Hall of Fame, and some of the efforts that Sparks High has endeavored throughout its over-century-long history. Without further ado, please welcome to our podcast, Mr. Donald Abbott. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So the first thing that I would love to know is, what is your personal history with the city of Sparks?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Sparks. I've lived here my entire life, all 32 years. The joke that is that I've lived, the longest I ever was in Reno was the one day I was born at St. Mary's Hospital, and the rest has been here in Sparks. I went to Little Bear Preschool, right there on Pyramid, Green Ray Elementary, Dilworth Middle School, Sparks High School. Definitely a product of the community, and this is home.
Today we're going to be talking about your alma mater, Sparks High School. So yes. It's one of the oldest schools in this area, correct?
Yeah, it's the oldest in Sparks, next to Glendale Schoolhouse, but obviously Glendale's not used anymore. But Sparks High School is the oldest school. It was built in 1953. First graduating class was 1954. It's the oldest in the valley is Reno High by a few years, but Sparks is our oldest. And
in its long-standing history, what major changes or developments has the school seen?
Yeah, well, the school's definitely grown from where it once was. When it was built back in 1953, it was built off using some bonds. It was about $850,000, which is about $9.3 million in today's numbers.
Wow.
The high school, everything, it evolves. From when the school was built, it was built because of a population need. There wasn't enough schools to take care of the current kiddos that were around. When this new school was built, they changed the, I'm going to call it the process for the kiddos to go through school. So I went to a 4-4-4. So it was kindergarten through fourth grade. And then you had fifth through eighth grade. And then the Sparks High School itself was 9th through 12th, which is what it still is to this day. So, things changed definitely over the years. The high school that we currently have is not the original high school. The original one was located over at 1450 C Street, which is where the courthouse currently sits. When the original high school was there, that eventually turned into the junior high school. When Sparks High School, the new school, which when I say the new school, that's what we currently have, when that was built. So they repurposed that, and then obviously the old high school is not there. We have a courthouse there now. So
wow.
Lots of changes, definitely a lot over the years.
And during your time being involved in the school and the high school, have you seen any major changes or developments recently?
Recently. I know an elevator got put in at one point. I think that was in my earlier years. It might have even been before me. I don't legitimately remember the elevator, but I know the elevator's there now. And so to help with ADA, so it's 2 stories. And so we have to be able to get, the kiddos that aren't able to take the stairs to the second floor. That's a change. We had the flagpole. So the flagpole is a great story. The original flagpole would be more closer to the school off 15th Street. And now the flagpole is still on 15th. I said 15th. I'm sorry. It's 12th Street the school's on. It's now closer to the actual street because the old location, the trees eventually grew, like all trees do, and blocked the flag. So you couldn't see the flag from the street anymore. Oh. And one of the previous classes, Craig Gustafson is a Sparks High grad. He led the charge. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and they raised money, put the flagpole out closer, and we actually do a flag ceremony every year where the 50th, whatever class is celebrating their 50th reunion, goes out, retires the flag, they put a new one up, and then the incoming class would be the one to supply, and the old one gets it, like the class of 51, or whoever's celebrating the 51st anniversary would get the old flag. So it's kind of a cool little getting the alumni back into the school and getting nearby and starting the year off right.
That's amazing. And speaking of alumni, I'd love it if you were able to speak to the Alumni Association. So how long have they existed, and what are some of the facets that they work with?
Absolutely. So the Alumni Association has gone in some small waves. Going back to 1999 is when the very first association meeting happened, and the whole point of that was to start a grand reunion. Keith Odell was definitely a leader of that. Got a group of alumni together, and they started doing grand reunions. And that grand reunion is just all years of graduating classes from Sparks High School can attend. So we had one in 2000, 2004, 2008, and 2012, and they were talking about doing one in 2016, but the numbers were just declining from the very first one. And just put in perspective, the very first one in 2000, you had 900 people made a reservation, 1,300 people showed up, so they had 400 more. And then in our most recent one, back in 2012, we only had around 229 people. And so now, with that, the association kind of was fizzling away in 2016-ish, 2015. That's when I started getting involved with the association. And there's a great group of alumni members, but I was definitely by far the youngest on that board. And thankfully, I've been able to get some of my other younger friends involved. And it's not just all young people at all, but we have an association now where we're trying to get our nonprofit, we're trying to get everything kind of breathe that fresh air back into the association. It's been around, but we didn't do too much besides doing an annual Christmas dinner and be a part of the Hall of Fame ceremony and helping with that process. So we have a good group of people that they are 100% involved, want to give back to Sparks High School, give back to the students. We're all railroaders, and that's something that's important for all of us alumni. And eventually we would love to do a grand reunion. We were talking about doing something, probably more low-key for next year, but starting to bring people together, starting to show people, hey, Sparks High School is still a thing. We can use your money, we can use your time, we can use whatever you're willing to give us to give back to the high school. And so we made some really good progress. And literally this year's been phenomenal for us, for our association to really get back on its feet. And we have a vibrant board that has some diversity, from age, from backgrounds, just everything. So it's pretty exciting. It's an exciting time for the association.
So the Sparks Museum has a collection of yearbooks from local high schools in the city. And proudly, we have the very first yearbook from Sparks High in 1917 that anyone can come in and view these yearbooks in the library that we're currently building right now. I think that it's so interesting in looking at these yearbooks when you really go into it, because the earliest one has poetry and literature from the students, drawings of the original building that they were in, and local ads too. How little is different than the yearbooks today. I mean, there certainly are some big changes. It's been 100 years, but yeah. It's really interesting. Can you speak to some of your observations of these yearbooks?
Well, the businesses, they're still there. And that's one of my favorite parts of just looking back from just a historical side to see, say even Butcher Boys. Butcher Boys was around when I was in high school as well as many years prior, but now it's not. And there's still Butcher Boys in Reno, but the Butcher Boys location in Sparks that would advertise in our yearbook. And it's just neat to see those old spots and its history. It's a history book now, end of the day, the yearbook is. And seeing the photos, seeing people's different hairstyles and, those things, everything goes in waves, we can see that now. We still have, I couldn't say in my yearbook that we have poetry, but I know there's some creative stuff in there, no doubt at all. And, how the process to make the yearbook, I was not on the yearbook committee by no means. But I remember talking to someone who was just 2 weeks ago. I was at a function, and she was telling me how the process for them to get those photos in. They weren't doing it on a computer. There's no computers around. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of work to do it, just to do one page, let alone 200 pages or whatever they ended up doing. And now we can do everything online, and we can, if you don't like your photo, we can change it like that and move on, or we catch an error, we can spell check right there. Back then, you're spell checking with your mind, which that's not the job for me, for sure. But it is neat. I have a great memory of actually being at the Sparks Museum on a Saturday shift, and I used to work on the 1 to 4s, and it was a slow day, and I was like, I'm gonna go grab a yearbook, and I just grabbed a random yearbook out of our gift store, and it happened to be Gino Martini's yearbook, and I didn't know what year he graduated. I honestly at the time didn't know really who Gino Martini was, besides he was our mayor. And I always remember flipping through and seeing Gino and just seeing all the things that Gino did, and I had no idea. I could have asked him; he could have told me 100%, but at that time, I didn't know who Gino was. Gino didn't know who I was. And it was a fun time just looking at our current mayor and seeing what he did at Sparks High School, all because of the yearbook.
Well, and it's so exciting, too, because yearbooks in general are this moment in someone's life where you're excited to go on to the next chapter and begin your career or whatever the next chapter is. So especially with some of these notable alumni, too, to see this was really the onset of their achievements.
Yeah. And, looking back at yearbooks, they're a moment of history right there. And we're able to look, like I'm probably the only person, because of my current title being the president of the association, where I keep my yearbooks, like I have my 4, I use them as references more often than not. We're able to capture who graduated what years, and, all that information that, eventually kind of does get lost, or we forget. There's people you graduated with me, or were you a year older? Because, in high school, things kind of blend together.
Right.
So it's a great tool. And for all of us, I think it's fun to read those notes, even if they're not our notes, especially at the museum where we have people that donate yearbooks. It's kind of cool to read what they were writing, back then compared to now. Some of my notes in my yearbook, I would rather my parents not see. Compared to back then, they were much more appropriate comments, to say the least, So.
Yeah, I know that in our display case that we have dedicated to Sparks High, that there is a skirt from, I can't remember exactly what year it is, but that one of the alumni had someone sign her skirt and then went and after the fact embroidered everything that everyone had written. And it's such a cool feature to check out.
No, super, super cool. There's a lot of cool things in that little exhibit for sure.
Now, speaking of alumni, it is my understanding that you have served on an induction committee for the Sparks High School Hall of Fame. Can you talk about some of the notable alumni and a few of the individuals that you've had a part in honoring?
Absolutely. So I was privileged to serve in 2015, and then again in 2017 and to this day. So 6 years. Once I have this year, it'll be 6 years total. And the best part, there's so many great parts, but one of them was when in 2015, we had Chuck Siddle. Chuck Siddle was a Sparks Middle School teacher, coach, just very involved with those kiddos. And he was class of 1962. So that year that we inducted him, I was the Hall of Fame liaison for the alumni forum. Just make sure that the whole process goes smooth. That process is there's the kiddos at Sparks High School write out a little bio about him, make sure we get a photo of him currently or somewhat more recent, and then his old photo back in high school. And we put it together, and you're trying to just make sure everyone talks to the right people. And so I got to go to his house, talk to him, and he was telling me how, they started a scholarship for his class. That was, 2015. I graduated in 2008, so in 2018 would be our 10-year. Because of his conversation telling us about how his class started a scholarship on their 20-year mark, we started one on our 10-year mark. And so literally the Hall of Fame, we're recognizing a lot of great people, but that was a moment that allowed me to knock a door of a guy's house. He welcomed me in. He told me some cool stuff about a scholarship, and we planted a seed. And now we continue our scholarship. And it's small things like that I love the Hall of Fame. There's obviously a ton of really cool people in the Hall of Fame. And there's so many, so if anyone's listening, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. I definitely kind of picked some people that I know personally and that I've enjoyed. So like I said, we already had Chuck Siddle. We had Gino Martini, who, if anyone knows Gino, that goes without saying how great of a person he was, or is still to this day, longest serving mayor. Lemern Kozlowski was my lifelong neighbor across the street. She was on PTA boards, president, I think she has 3 Sparks High kiddos, or 4 that went to Sparks High. 100% love Sparks, probably just as much as me, if not more. Patty McClellan, she does a program called Read for the Ride. And And so Read for the Ride is where kiddos, they read books, they get entered into a raffle, and they can win. There's 2 cars. The City of Sparks does donate one of those, and they buy one, the Read for the Ride nonprofit, and they refurbish it. And, we're not talking like, putting in fancy rims or anything. We're doing oil changes and getting a nice car to drive to school and whatnot. And like this year, one of the kids that won was a freshman, doesn't have a driver's license, but at least they're ready for a car when they get to that point. And, that program, I've been fortunate to represent the city and pulling those tickets. Or I remember one year there's a girl that won that their family didn't have a car. Wow. And winning that car, that's life-changing to have a vehicle now gifted to you because you read books, which we should all read books, 100%. Yeah. And so Patty she also helps raise money. And the Block S program, which Block S at Sparks High School, is something that fizzled out. It wasn't around when I was there, but prior to me, it was. Greg Shigar, who I'll talk about later, he's also a Hall of Fame member. He put some energy into it, and the Block S program is made up of athletes at Sparks High School that are not just athletes, but also academics leaders in their classes. And they go out and they bring books to kiddos that feed into the elementary school, read them, and then let the kids pick some books. And we're really trying to, help get kids younger reading. And so it's, reading's cool. So Patty, shout out to Patty. And since I just brought up Greg Shigar, I was very fortunate. I was able to nominate him to be in the Hall of Fame, and we got him in. A Sparkside grad. He works at the high school. He's a registrar. He was my football coach, and he's also in the Alumni Association. Everyone calls him, some people call me Mr. Sparks, but the real title is Shuggy. And Shuggy, if he listens to that, he'll probably be mad I call him Shuggy, but I love him dearly. So, there's him. And then kind of going back in time a little bit, we have Keith Odell. Like I said earlier, he's started the Alumni Association. He did, sadly passed away I believe it was last year, but he really got everything started. When I got involved, he, not just metaphorically, he actually passed me a baton. We got a Sparks High School baton, and we all signed it, and he passed that on to me when I became president to continue what he already got started. And then Janice Bria, she's my English teacher, Sparks High grad, and she taught at Sparks High School. She worked the chain gang, I think it's like 40 years or some 30 or 40 years. She's been working in the chain gang at Friday night football games, just moving the 10-yard yardage thing down back and forth. She doesn't miss a home game there. She helps a ton of things. Amazing human being. John Mayer was my principal at Greenbrae Elementary, longest serving councilman with 17 and a half years. Also a Sparks High grad. One thing that John did that was amazing is he went to every home game at Sparks High School, volleyball, basketball, football, baseball. He would show up and cheer on those kids. And he was a school board trustee after his term at council, and he loved kids. He loved Sparks 100%, and he loves Sparks High School. I only have a few more, but Dennis George, he was a quarterback at Sparks High School. Definitely large involvement in the Alumni Association. He was one of the original members of that whole association, and he was one of the final ones to kind of pass on the baton to all of us when we have a kind of a new board. And so definitely a rock star there. Alf Sorsen, because without saying, we have a community center dedicated to Alf, and just his service to the city, definitely a good person there. Tip Whitehead, I know a lot of people would be mad if I didn't mention Tip, but Tip was a coach for the football team, basketball, track, and he is 100% credited with the football dynasty that we had at Sparks High School back in the day. And we have our athletic complexes at Sparks High School dedicated to Tip. So I think that's everyone. I probably missed there's no doubt that we missed some people because we started in 2002. It was the very first year. And we're obviously doing it this year again. We did miss 1 year during COVID, but we have a lot of, we average about 4 to 5 people every year. So, on math, that's around 40, 50 people, I think, in there. So,
wow. Or
even more. Yeah. Going back in time a little bit, back when I was saying the school was built in 1953. So prior to 53, actually, in 1951, we had the Sparks School District, and I'll elaborate on that in a second. So it wasn't the Washoe County School District; it was its own little district, and that was, I couldn't tell you. I don't know when it was formed, but all the schools were separate. So we had Sparks had their own, Reno had their own, and then elsewhere, obviously, other parts of the state had their own too. And so that school district, there was 3 board members. At the time, in 1951, it went from 3 to 5 members. And so we had Archie Clayton, who was our president, Miss Agnes Risley was the clerk, Mrs. Agnes Crosby, John P. Capero, and Frank F. McStoker. And then a name that I think a lot of people remember is Proctor Hugg. He was our superintendent. And kind of a fun fact from Proctor is he actually served as the principal and the superintendent of the old Sparks High School, and the old one was the one over where the courthouse currently is, in a dual role from 1938 to 1950, which I think it's impressive that we had, if you want to just put a principal for 12 years or even a superintendent for 12 years, but he did both roles for 12 years, helping our community.
That's impressive.
Yeah, super neat. And, there's obviously, it's forever known with the high school now. We have Proctor Hugg for, definitely he did a lot of great things. And another little factoid about him is at the time when the new school was built in 53, he had no administrative staff. So no secretary. He was a one-man show doing dual roles here. And then that same year, they increased staff from 73 to 80 because of the additional students that were coming in. And just put in perspective kind of the student population, in 1953, there were 6 schools located in the Sparks School District, and they were serving 2,209 students in the Sparks community. And then the legislature, they did make a change a few years after the new school was built, and it was right at that same time, and they consolidated the counties. So we have Washoe County School District now. But I remember talking to an alumni who he graduated from the Sparks School District. He was very proud to say that. And I was like, this is awesome. If you have your diploma, can you send it over? Well, he did. Little did he know, it actually says Washoe County School District because it was right in the process of switching over to the whole Washoe County School District.
Oh, wow.
But he actually graduated from Sparks School District. His report card says Sparks Schools, I believe it says. And so he's in this like weird transition period where, they know that it's coming. And so they're planning for it. So he is from the Sparks School District, but on paper it says Washoe County.
Now, in thinking about the other high schools, of course, there's going to be rivalries between the different high schools. And you are, of course, a proud railroader. So what would you say that the relationship between Sparks High and the other 2 high schools in Sparks are like?
And so I'm going to take it back a little bit further. So at one time, Reno High School and Sparks High School were the only 2 schools.
That was it. That's
the original rivalry. And I have heard, those games, those football games, basketball games, we are very, very intense on the field and off the field.
To this day.
Yeah. Well, we don't play them much. They're in a higher division than us now with just population stuff.
Sure.
But talking, Dennis George, when he was quarterback, I just called him yesterday to pick his brain on a few things that we talked about today. And he reminded me what year that they beat Reno. Like, he knows those games. He knows, they're proud of those things. And that was that was a rivalry that, you could lose your whole season, but if you beat Reno, life was okay. Or, vice versa for sure. And then now, as, the world continues to grow, Reed High School became our next rivalry. It's in Sparks. It was built a little bit after Sparks High. And that rivalry, I've heard some crazy, crazy stories there of they would burn letters on each other's fields.
Oh.
Like they're like before homecoming, and some things that are just very, very intense, let's say the least. And so that was a rivalry that was live for a while. When Spanish Springs High School opened, I would say that rivalry, the rivalry between Sparks and Reed, kind of went away because Spanish Springs took a lot of our kids, and we just weren't competing at. We didn't have the population compared to Reed to be competing at what they were in 4A when I was in high school, and we were in 3A. So that rivalry kind of went away. I think we're all just friends at that point, really. And so, we have rivalries with schools outside of the area now, but it's not so much a battle here. I will say for soccer, our soccer program plays up in 5A, and Reed is in 5A. 100% of all games, I want our soccer team to win. that is a game that is number one to me. Because a lot of my friends are Reed High School grads, and
Sure.
I know we had like Scott Carey on here earlier. It's fun to be able to poke fun at each other, and it's just like our football team, our NFL football team winning or something like that.
Absolutely. Now, when you attended Sparks High, what activities were you involved in? What was your favorite aspects of attending Sparks High? Favorite subjects, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So freshman, sophomore, I played football. I had never played football prior to high school. I got involved that was when Greg Shigar was my coach. I'll brag for us as sophomores, we went undefeated that year. So that was kind of cool to be. I was starting left tackle, so an offensive lineman. And I had no idea what we were doing, but Shug was an amazing human being, amazing coach, and we did really, really good. I went, so sophomore year, I ended up getting a car at the end of the year, got a driver's license. I decided I wanted to start working in summers. By working in summer, it's hard to do summer weights, double days, triple days. And I had a job that was in heating and air conditioning, and it's busy in summer. And so I ended up switching from football, and I went to tennis. So I played tennis as a junior and senior. Hands down, some of my best times ever. It was fun. Marsha, she's still at Sparks High School. She was the assistant coach, and it was just a good time. It was a lot less running, and as kind of a lazy junior senior, that was important to me. But I also got my weekends off, and I got summers off. When I say weekends off, I still worked. I just didn't play sports.
Sure.
Sort of thing. So that was something I was involved with. Besides that, I wouldn't say I have a regret. I don't regret anything in my life. Is it whatever all of our choices got us to this point that we're sitting at here, and I love life. I do, I won't lie. Like, it would have been pretty cool to be involved in some other clubs, just some other extra. I just went to school and I went home for the most part, and seeing some kids participate in programs and just clubs now, that would have been cool, 100%. But yeah, that was where I was at. I wasn't I was more of a class clown. I wasn't the student body president. I won best hair of my luscious. I had like surfer hair. I would do the hair flip. My luscious locks.
Well, you're certainly involved now. You have a very active social media presence, and you are all the time supporting Sparks High School activities and sports.
Yep.
So can you give us a rundown of some of the ways in which you volunteer and support these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So something that I started a little bit ago is we made a Facebook group page. So as much as I post on my personal and those social medias, there's a lot of stuff that actually a lot of people don't see unless you're alumni, unless you're in that group. And so, we're always recognizing the kiddos, and, we just had actually at City Council, we recognized some track state champions. And so you can get those kids out. And then there's also, there's funding needs. Like we had a mural in front of the high school that needed to be replaced. And we raised, I think it was like $2,300 in 40 hours just from alumni. And, they weren't writing, $500,000 checks. There was some 20s, some 50s. It was, more quantity over quality sort of, or, size of check sort of thing.
Yeah.
They're all quality checks, 100%. Don't get me wrong. But things like that where we help fill a gap with, the school has a need, and obviously the kiddos have a need, and we try to help fill that. So, going back to the association, we have an interest. We haven't made any full commitments yet, but where the alumni could have a goal of at the Christmas dinner, we want to raise so much money so we can buy X amount of caps and gowns for the kids, or yearbooks, or things like that, where we can have a goal where we can give back. So we are not just getting together to eat dinner and talk to each other, but a goal where open up your pocketbooks, we're going to make a change in the class of 2023 it would be. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's lots of ways.
Well, it's so great to see such an active alumni base that is so willing to support. I feel like that really goes hand in hand with the sheer amount of history that the high school has. I'm an alumni of the newest high school in Washoe County, DeMonte Ranch, and there's just no opportunity as of yet until we're over 100 years old, where I feel like there would be that level of care and concern from an alumni base.
I know 100%, and that's something, we have classes that graduated in 1909. Obviously, no one's alive from that class, but we have a long list of alumni compared to, Reno High School is the only other school. And Bishop Manogue has a very strong alumni there too. But it's hard to, I talked to my friends at Reed High School. There's not an alumni base there. Spanish Springs, they're definitely trying to get something going, but we're very fortunate here at Sparks to have what we have. Putting on my city hat, putting on my campaign hat, actually, that's one of my best icebreakers at a door is, hey, I'm a Sparks High grad. And it sounds silly. If I step out in a way looking at it, it does not sound like a normal thing to list your high school that you went to on a campaign flyer. But that, hands down, people, they're, I went to high school there, or my cousin or so-and-so went there. And we have something to talk about, something relatable, and that allows me to also convert them into alumni association members, or to get involved about what we're doing at the high school too. So it's, one of our sayings, once a railroader, always a railroader, which I hope everyone that's listening at Sparks High grads said that with me. It means more than just those words. It's community. You tell me you're a Sparks High grad, there's a level of respect that you just gained right there. We have a connection, and at Sparks High School, there's some cliques like every other school, but it wasn't like a solid wall between each other. I have 140 classmates in my graduating class. I could tell you probably about 110 of their names right now. Like, a lot of us just knew each other. We hung out with each other. We had our own little group of really good friends, but it wasn't war against the other person that we just, they're in a different clique. Compared to, I know Reed High School, my friends, they just stayed in a circle.
Sure.
I name drop. I'm like, oh, you went to Reed? So-and-so? And they're like, I have no idea. And I couldn't imagine. I could tell you classmates in juniors, sophomores, freshmen. I remember I was a student aide for the 8th grader. There's an 8th grade Spanish class. I could tell you some of those kids' names all the way through. And even, upperclassmen over me when I was younger. That it wasn't just standoffish. We're one community when we were in high school, and even more now that we walked those halls.
And in your time volunteering and working with the student bodies today, do you feel that's still largely the same?
Yeah, it's still there, and that's the goal. There's something special about Sparks High School. You can talk to the teachers that are there currently. They'll tell you there's something different at that high school than anywhere else. We have a new football coach, and in his little announcement, he mentioned that people have told him how close of a community it is, where it's, just because, if the football coach is going to, he's doing football, but just the soccer coach is going to support him, the baseball coach, the people that, played at those other sports besides football, they're going to support. We want Sparks High School to win in all sports. We want it to academically, we want those kids, to be, having those 4.0 GPAs, getting full ride scholarships, things like that, chasing the dreams. Where, I remember when I was at the high school, and, there's a label that comes with all of those things. We're an inner city school. We're not going to do much. And I can tell you a list of not only my friends that I personally know, but a list of alumni that have changed the world end of the day. And if we haven't changed the world, we're going to. And that's something that, we took care of each other 100%, not just in the classroom, but outside of that. And to this day, we take care of each other. And it's, I don't know, at least I don't know any other school, but from talking to my other friends, that's not a thing that they have at other schools. And so we're special over here at Sparks High School, that's for sure.
Well, I think throughout this interview, you have certainly spoken to this, but I would love to know if there's any other reason you have why you're proud to be a railroader.
Oh, it's maroon and gold flows through me. Like, I'm wearing a Sparks High School shirt on now. I walked into the hat. The other day I walked somewhere and I forgot where I was at, and someone's like, oh, you don't have any Sparks High clothes on. And it's just normal for me to have maroon and gold on at any given time, especially in winter. I think all my sweaters are maroon and gold.
I mean, they're good colors.
They are, 100%. And that's just something that I enjoy. I enjoy the other night at Taco Bell. There's a guy, he just graduated from Sparks High. He recognized me because I do some photos for him. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, next time I saw him, he's like, oh, back again? And I'm like, yeah, like, we can chat. Like, it's cool just to run into people in the community that are wearing maroon and gold. And I remember riding the marina just the other night. I saw a guy and I yelled at him, and I was like, Sparks High School. The next lap, I was like, once a railroader, and he finished the line of always a railroader. And I don't hear, no offense to Reed High School, I don't hear once a Raider, always a Raider, which it's a saying across for any school, easy to plug it in.
Yeah.
But I don't hear that anywhere else. And that's something, I think, going back to a question you asked earlier about how that's going on at the school right now, how that community feeling, where whenever I have a mic, I will guarantee you I will end whatever I'm saying with once a railroader, always railroad. I want that seed planted because I want those kids to know when they're walking, as soon as they walk through those halls at senior year, and even if they don't make it through senior year, if they're juniors, sophomores, and something happens in life and they're not able to complete, they're still railroaders in my eyes. There's still a community here ready to help, ready to support, and it's forever. It's life. It's not just a few years. We're here. We're in this together, and I think those kids, they get it 100%. And there's some young, amazing student athletes as well as just students that are in there that they understand what that meaning actually means. And I don't think you can put it into words how it feels, and unless you are in it. So
that's excellent. And you had mentioned earlier putting on your political hat. I would be remiss if we didn't mention the fact that you are on the city council. And we previously had Charlene Bybee come on and speak about her ward. So how did you get involved in city council, and how long have you been there, and what are your favorite aspects of it?
Yeah. So, I got involved. Like I said, it wasn't going back in high school, everyone thinks I was student body president or some role there. Like I said earlier, I was not. I kind of keep the stories short as the best I can. I had a really bad motorcycle accident when I was 20. I got care flatted off Virginia City, off the truck route up there. You bless my mother's heart. My dad was at St. Mary's getting a pacemaker defibrillator put in, and I'm being care flatted to Renown with internal bleeding and some other issues. Bless her heart for having to take care of both of us.
Oh,
That's
my gosh.
a unique story. I chuckle at it because there's some humor, but yeah, wasn't so funny for my mother at the time. I'll for sure say that one. So with that moment, that moment financially set me back a lot, but it allowed me to realize that tomorrow's not promised, and that I need to live my life, because I wasn't ready to die yet. I wasn't ready to die it was June 6, 2010. And that wasn't ready yet. I will say, since then, I've learned to live life to its fullest. And running for office is a chance. It's a big chance. You're putting yourself out there where you could lose. And it's not just when you apply for a normal job and it's just you and your employer or potential employer knows that you didn't get it. The whole city knows, the whole community, your friends, everyone knows that you lost or you won, hopefully. That's the goal. And so I learned, like I said, that accident, I was like, well, I got to take some chances. And, I love Sparks, 100%. I thought about running for mayor in 2014. Gino knows this. I wasn't mad at him. I just thought it'd be cool. And it sounds silly, but I had no idea. I really had no idea what you do as mayor or even a city council member. When I ran in 2016, I talked to Julia Ratty. She was the sitting councilwoman at the time, and she kind of picked her brain a little bit. She put me on an advisory board, and then I changed my mind, like I do a lot of my life. I changed my mind, and I was like, I'm going to open my photography business. I'm going to be, have a legitimate business. I'm going to pursue that. I'm not going to run for city council. And there's a 2-week period in March where you can file for office. And I woke up that Friday. Actually, that whole week, too. I'm asking my mother. I'm like, Mother, should I run? Should I not? My mother gave me some of the best advice that I did not agree with at that current moment. She would not give me an answer. She told me, you got to choose what you got to do. Like what you want to do. You have to commit yourself. I can't commit for you. And I committed that Friday morning. I woke up. I went to work, and it's like, it was a slow day. I was like, I'm checking out. I'm going to go file. I'm going to run for office. Most politicians or potential politicians or candidates that are going to run usually have a website, have business cards, signs. I had nothing. I just showed up. I signed the paper. I had everything by about 1 o'clock, but I had no idea what I was doing. Legitimately, I Googled how to run for office that year. I didn't know we got paid when I signed up. I thought it was just a volunteer gig. I thought we just did city council. I didn't know we had to serve on these other boards and commissions outside of city council. So there's a lot more to it than I thought. I remember that after I won, it was like kind of like inauguration day, like swearing in. They told me I got health insurance, and if if you want to see someone excited at 26 years old after my accident was, I think, $25,000, and you're telling me I have health insurance? I was a pretty excited person that day. The salary was nice, but not having to worry if I got care flighted again, quite nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a bonus for sure. So, there's no doubt that I didn't do the job. The job, I wasn't chasing a paycheck. I was chasing my community, the community that I grew up in, the community that's raised me to be the person I am. I wanted to get back. And, I was fortunate that I won that election. And it turned out I'm the youngest council person ever for the city of Sparks. With that election, I was 26. And I think I still am probably the youngest ever in Sparks. But that's not a title that I want to hold on forever. I would love for any kid, but being a little partial to my high school at Sparks High, I would love a Sparks High School kid, to chase that dream. Where we all want to make change in the world, and retweeting something or resharing on Facebook's cool. For the most part, people are just going to be probably battling you back and forth in the comments section. But you can make real change by getting involved in your community. You can serve on a board and commission. You can run for public office. You can run for any public office except for president as soon as you're 18, as long as you can vote. And that's something that I truly wish that more of our young students and young human beings just kind of get involved, get in there, and realize that voting is a legitimate process. You can win. One of the best parts actually of running for office is getting some of my friends, people I went to high school with, that have never voted, because they just, in quotes, I'm putting, their vote doesn't count. And absolutely their vote does count. My very first election, I think I won by like 650 votes out of 37,666.
Wow.
And so that one, those one votes add up real quick.
Yeah.
It's like 0.48% I won by. So their vote does count. And it was really cool to be able to get people into the ballot box for some of them their first time. And we can talk about the other items. I'm not trying to persuade them one way or the other, but I'm like, hey, here's the facts. You can research it and let's talk. And that's been hands down probably one of the best parts of kind of running for office, of just getting people involved into the whole process, and we can make change and help our city into the day.
Excellent. And I think that segues nicely into our big 3 questions. This is what we always end on with each of our guests. And I think of all the guests that we've had so far, I've been most excited to ask you this first question of what sparks you about Sparks, since you're such an advocate for the city and so proud of your heritage with it. What makes it a unique place to live, work, and visit?
Yeah, that question is a great question, because I think I could give you a whole paragraph. I could write probably a novel on that. But if I was going to just narrow it down, it'd be what sparks me the most about Sparks is the people. The people make this community as amazing as it is. The people they choose to live here in Sparks. This is it's a community. It's family oriented, where you can raise a family here. You take care of each other. It's not the hustle and bustle of, no offense, I call Reno West Sparks, but it's not the hustle and bustle of over there. I'm not saying we're all tortoises by no means, but we shop local. We try to keep it in our neighborhood. We try to take care of each other. We're looking after our neighbors. We're just loving each other, which sounds probably fairly simple, but there's a reason why so many people call Sparks home. It's growing pretty quick, which the secret's out that this is a place where you want to call home, and we want to love each other and take care of each other. So that's what sparks me about Sparks.
That's excellent. Now, second question. Do you have a favorite story or moment from Sparks' history? This could be either a personal memory or a story that you've heard that you feel is significant and that you'd love to share.
Yeah, so there's a list of stories. One that I thought first, I remember getting my very first strike at Greenbrae Lanes. I remember going up to the Sixes. The Sixes are where Wedekind Mine used to be, and remember when it got shut down because they found dynamite.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, but one of my favorite stories and one of my favorite locations. Well, it is my favorite location in town is Longford Park. Longford Park is on the corner of Greenbrae and Boise, just west of McCarran. And Longford Park's where I grew up playing sports. A lot of my close friends lived right in that neighborhood. So we could walk from their house to the park, play basketball, tennis, football, ultimate frisbee, capture the flag. We built igloos at that park, igloo singular, sorry. Had snowball fights. We called ourselves Park Friends. That was a name that our little group had. We'd have people show up that normally didn't come to the park. We'd play them. We'd play as a team of Park Friends versus them. It was just a place where we became some of the best friends I have to this day from that park. And turns out it's named after our sister city, Longford, Ireland, which I had no idea at the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was fortunate. After I got elected, we went to Longford. We went to Ireland as a whole, but we also got to go to Longford, and it's now a county, and there's not a town anymore. But it was just so neat to be able to go to a spot that's named after a park that I grew up at. And to this day, it's my favorite park, hands down, the City of Sparks. Sadly, it's not in Ward 1, which is what I represent, but it's still in Sparks, and I do love it dearly.
Wow. And last question, since this is a museum podcast, and we are a museum that is constantly looking for new stories, new memories, new artifacts, if there was one thing that you could donate or share with us that you would want to be a part of the museum's permanent collection, either something that you personally own or something that you know about, what would it be and why?
So that was a hard one because I feel like I've donated most of the items that I already have to the museum that I would like. And so kind of getting my thinking cap on, we talked really about Sparks High School Hall of Fame. There's a list of individuals that are alive, and sadly some have passed that are on that list. It might be kind of cool to be able to borrow maybe the plaques from the high school. We have all Hall of Fame plaques are at the high school in the Hall of Fame room. So we have all those, and maybe even do just a temporary display of all of them and have maybe some type of get together. I don't know if we have to have where everyone gets 5 minutes to speak, to say hello and, to see each other, but it'd be kind of neat to get, be able to get Gino down there and, Sean Carey is our old city manager and people like that are still around and they can see each other and kind of give that, I don't want to say the last hoorah, but get everyone together. It shows, this is the history of Sparks High. These are the people that have either walked these halls as students or admin or teachers. And so, pretty neat, Kendall, going back in time a little bit, I have to give a shout out to Kendall DePoli. She was the principal back when the Hall of Fame started. I believe it was one of her ideas that she came to the alumni to kind of get this all started. So without her, I wouldn't even be able to have this conversation about this idea of having a little Hall of Fame thing for Sparks High School people there.
That would be excellent. Well, I don't know. That's quite an idea. We may look forward to that in the future.
Sounds good to me.
Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast today. This was truly a delight to have you here. And I would love to at least start off the famous saying that you were teasing earlier. Once a railroader.
Always a railroader.
Yes. I think that's the perfect way to end. Thank you so much, Donald.
Thank you.
The Sparks Museum podcast is funded in part by a grant from the Nevada Humanities and the National Endowment for the Humanities. It is produced and recorded at the podcast recording studio at Sparks' own AntSpace Co-working Entrepreneurial Hub, a place for entrepreneurs, made by entrepreneurs. We really want to get the word out about our brand new audio series, so please spread the word about our new podcast by taking a moment to rate, review, and share this episode. Do you have a favorite story of Sparks that you want to hear on the podcast? Email info@sparksmuseum.org to share any recommendations. We would love to hear from you. We also invite you to visit the Sparks Heritage Museum on 814 Victorian Avenue. The museum is open Tuesdays through Saturdays, from 11 to 4 Tuesdays through Fridays, and 1 to 4 on Saturdays. Please come visit and be a part of our ongoing efforts to tell the Sparks story. We'll see you next time.